Right now, as you read these words, something is reading them with you. Not out loud, not in any way another person could hear, but there it is, a quiet, steady voice running just beneath the surface of everything you think and do. It has your cadence, it finishes your thoughts, it narrates your memories before you even ask it to. You probably call it your inner voice, but here is what almost nobody tells you. That voice does not belong to you. Not entirely. And the story of how it got inside your head stretches back further than language itself. Think about the last time you read something complicated. Did you hear the words? Did you feel your lips almost move, just slightly, like they wanted to help? That sensation has a name. Researchers call it subvocalization, and it is not a quirk. It is a fingerprint of something ancient,
running inside modern machinery. In the 1930s, a psychologist named Lev Vygotsky proposed something radical for his time. He argued that the voice inside your head was never yours to begin with. It started as someone else's voice. It started outside you, in the world, spoken out loud by the people who raised you. You heard it, you absorbed it, you turned it inward. And somewhere along the way, it became the voice you now believe is the most private thing you own. Vygotsky called it inner speech. He watched children talk to themselves while they worked, narrating their own actions, correcting their own mistakes, coaching themselves through problems. He noticed that as children aged, this speech got quieter and quieter. It did not disappear, it went underground. What you experience today as your internal monologue is the final stage of that disappearing act. But why does it sound like a voice at all? Your brain, for all its complexity, is fundamentally a prediction machine. It does not wait for the world to happen to it. It is always running slightly ahead, generating a model of what comes next. Language is no different. When you think in words, your brain is activating the same motor systems it would use to actually speak. The vocal cords do not move, the mouth stays closed, but the signal is there, faint and fast, like a car engine idling in neutral. Researchers at UC Berkeley, led by Robert Knight, demonstrated this by placing electrodes on the surface of the brain and decoding the neural patterns of imagined speech. They could reconstruct words a person was only thinking, not saying, with measurable accuracy. The inner voice is not a metaphor, it is a physical event. Your brain is speaking inside itself to itself, constantly. And here is where it gets strange. Not everyone experiences it the same way. Psychologist Russell Hurlburt spent decades developing a method called descriptive experience sampling, interrupting people randomly throughout their day and asking them to describe exactly what was happening in their mind at the moment of interruption. What he found surprised even him. A significant portion of people, possibly as many as 1 in 4, report no inner voice at all. Not a quiet one, not a suppressed one, simply nothing. They think in images, in feelings, in abstract patterns that never resolve into words. So what does that mean for you? If you do have a voice, here is something to consider. That voice has an accent, not a geographic one, though it might. It has the accent of everyone who spoke to you before you could speak back. The rhythms of your parents, the cadences of teachers, the verbal tics of a best friend you had at age 7. Vygotsky believed that thought itself is internalized dialogue, that you do not think and then talk, you think in the structure of talk, because talk was there first. This has consequences that go deeper than most people realize. The psychologist Charles Fernyhough, who wrote one of the most thorough modern accounts of inner speech, argues that the voice in your head is not singular. It is not a clean, unified narrator. It is a chorus. It contains echoes of other voices. When you feel torn between two choices, that is not just indecision. That may be two internalized perspectives, two absorbed voices, genuinely disagreeing.
The internal conflict you experience may be a kind of dialogue between people who no longer exist in the form they once did, but have never fully left. This is why the voice in your head sometimes says things you would never consciously choose to say. It criticizes you in ways that sound strangely familiar. It praises you in tones that belong to someone else. You did not invent that critic. You did not invent that cheerleader. You constructed them, unconsciously, from the raw material of every voice that ever mattered to you. There is a moment in early childhood, around age 2 or 3, when language and thought begin to fuse. Before that point, children think and feel without language framing the experience. After it, something changes. Thinking begins to carry the shape of sentences. The world begins to be narrated as it is experienced. And that shift, developmental psychologists argue, may be one of the most consequential moments in any human life, because it determines not just how you communicate, but how you experience yourself.
What you feel from the inside as the continuous stream of your own consciousness, that sense that there is a you sitting behind your eyes, narrating your life in real time, is not a given. It is constructed. It was built piece by piece out of language you did not choose, voices you did not pick, and structures of meaning that were handed to you before you had any say in the matter. The philosopher Julian Jaynes took this further than almost anyone before or since. He argued that modern human consciousness, the very sense of an interior self, a me that observes and narrates, was not present in ancient humans the way it is in you. He believed that people living as recently as 3,000 years ago did not have an inner monologue in the modern sense. Instead, in moments of stress or decision, they heard voices, literal voices, and they interpreted those voices as gods. Jaynes called this the bicameral mind, a brain divided into a speaking half and a hearing half, where the right hemisphere generated commands and the left hemisphere heard them as external speech. Whether his full theory holds is still debated, but the core observation sits uncomfortably close to something neuroscience keeps confirming. The line between a thought you generate and a voice you experience is far thinner than it feels. Consider people who hear voices, genuinely, without choosing to. Researchers now understand that auditory hallucinations are not a failure of perception. They are a failure of attribution. The brain is generating inner speech the way it always does, but the tagging system that marks it as self-generated breaks down. The voice sounds external because the brain has lost track of its own authorship. What you experience as a thought, someone else in a different neurological state experiences as a stranger speaking. The voice in your head and the voices in theirs come from the same place. The only difference is a signal, a quiet stamp the brain applies that says, "This is mine."
And that stamp is not infallible. So the next time you hear it, that quiet narrator, running commentary in the background while you move through your day, pay attention not just to what it says, but to how it sounds. Listen for the rhythms that are not quite yours. Listen for the tone that belongs to a room you grew up in. Listen for the sentence structures that remind you of someone you have not thought about in years. The voice you believe is the most private thing you own is, in some deep sense, the most social thing about you. It is everyone who ever spoke to you still speaking. And it started, just like you did, as something heard from the outside, before it became the voice you now call your own.